Sure, yeah.
We'll see. Here we go. All right. We'll give it a second for it to propagate through all the tubes.
Sure thing.
All right. You guys in chat, let me know if you can hear me. Uh-oh. It's getting a little bit of echo. Okay, pseudo tradutor. We here. All right, here we go. Yuki Productions. Cool. All right, it's good to see you guys tonight. For some of us, it is tomorrow already. Um,
Yeah.
I've got with me Connor Adams. He is the creator or co-creator of faerie. A Realm Wanderer's Guide.
Indeed.
So we have partnered with him as a collaboration in Backrocket. If you don't know, let me see if we can share that. Here we go. Look how pretty this is. And Connor, am I right in that you drew all of this? Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I'm a full-time illustrator, so
Awesome.
I lend
Really
my
cool.
skill.
So faerie is a pretty cool 5e setting. So we'll start off. Connor's going to sort of introduce himself and give us a real high-level overview of faerie. We'll chat about this just for a little bit because if you back Nimble and back faerie, what Connor and I are doing is his book has a really cool class that I wanted to do for Nimble, and I didn't. I had the time to do it. So there is a really cool witch class, which we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into. And we're going to port that from 5e and make it its own special Nimble class. But you have to be a backer of Nimble and faerie to get this. And we have a cool announcement about that as well. Hey, JP Covert. Good to see you, man. All right, Connor, you want to give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Connor Adams. I'm the director and sort of creative lead for the Dragon's Vault. Um, we are, as Evan said, running our latest book, Faerie, A Realm Wanderer's Guide, which is a source and setting book for 5e. That's a more traditional take on the Feywild, I would say. It's sort of born of a lot of the original folklore that me and my partner, Asta, my creative partner, um, grew up on. It's a lot more brutal than the Feywild, I think, of 5e. Traditionally is quite, it's a lot
Like
more
the real
Regency.
fairy tales, not the Disney fairy tales, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's the
Yeah,
Brothers Grimm versus the Pixar stuff for sure. Yeah,
that is too
so
cool. And if you guys can't tell
yeah,
by his accent, he is legit from the UK.
I
So
am.
he,
Yeah,
he
this
knows
is
what's up.
straight from source. Yeah, straight from source.
Very cool. Well, Connor, glad to have you here. I'm just going to
Thank
read
you.
through a little bit. If you guys have any questions or anything for us, please feel free to type it away in the chat. And Connor, if you see any questions that I missed, feel free to let me know. I'm going to read just
Yeah,
a quick
got it.
introduction to this so we can get a little bit of an idea of what's going on. Welcome to the
You can
fairy
do the
realm.
accent, or
Can I do an accent? I can't do an accent. I can't. I can do bad accents. It'll slip on and off. The world of faerie is the Fey realm as you've never seen it before in 5e, born of the legends and myth of the British Isles. Faerie is a brutal, feudalistic. So I like the feudalistic thing, and I've got some questions about that.
mm,
There's some cool systems that you have around that, from what I understand. A brutal, feudalistic setting that presents players with a world of warring courts and kingdoms in a realm of magic that lies just beyond the sight of mortals. This is not a place of regency, intrigue, and Edwardian sensibility. Faerie is a realm of medieval war fueled by elder magic. All right, I love that. I love it. Everything that I read is basically like just dripping with flavor and like cool things. Like I wouldn't, if I was GMing, I wouldn't know to say like this stuff. But like you said it, and like I could just like rip that right off. Like this is a realm of brutal feudal. And everybody be like, "Ooh,
that's wonderful.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I hope the book is stuff full of very obvious bits of me using a thesaurus to make things sound as wonderful as possible.
Yes, you're not a writer unless you permanently have a thesaurus tab open or one on your desk.
Forever, yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there is a free preview on the faerie backer kit page. And let me actually, we'll pull that up real quick. Give me 1 second to pull that up. Backer kit. I don't want you guys to see me typing things incorrectly. Backer kit. We'll pull it up and just sort of show you how it works. And faerie is doing just gangbusters also on BackerKit. So there is a free preview. Where's the free preview? There it is. Preview the book. Bam. Click on the link. You can download the preview as well. And then over here, down below a little bit, you see if you back Nimble 5e as well as faerie, and more than 25% of so 28% of backers have cross-backed, which is just huge. But I think
Amazing.
faerie is a really cool setting for Nimble, which is a setting agnostic thing. All right. Connor, any background or info you want to give us before we jump into looking at the witch?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we wanted to try our hand at designing a full 5e class for faerie. With our last book, Tempest, we stuck to subclasses. Mostly because I was a little scared to venture into trying to build a whole class. But with faerie, we wanted to really branch out and try something a bit different, and that's what we did with the witch. So I will pre-warn and say it is a little weird as far as class builds go for 5e. It's a little out there with some of the stuff it does, but we wanted to build something that really captured the original folklore of witches, rather than trying to hodgepodge it as a subclass or something similar. So it's the design of it, like you've put wonderfully before, is steeped in a lot of flavor. But it's about playing someone who can weave magic in strange ways, and we gave the witch its own sort of casting system that's a little different to spell slots. Not so different that it's difficult, but a little different because we wanted it to feel separate in its own way. But yeah, that's the sort of cool design philosophy for it.
And by way of quick, just be able to understand where it's coming from. It's obviously a caster class.
Yes,
and it's closest to like a sorcerer warlock, like kind of close, but with like cool weird things.
There's a little cleric in there. There's a little
there's a little. Oh man.
Yeah, it's not like mystic level stepping on people's toes or anything like that, but yeah, it's a caster that goes up to 5th level and then gets access to a wider range of high level spells sort of through class features.
Very cool.
Gets them back in a rest sort of way, so you're recouping the slots more, but you're also using slots to enhance spells, which will make a bit more sense as we go through it.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, warlock, sorcerer, cleric, they're all
some cool niche in there. Very cool. We do have a question from Jake R. Does BackerKit just handle letting you know if we back? Yes. So BackerKit will let us know, and we have these people back both. These people get the cool thing. And I guess before we get into the witch, why don't we? Do you want to announce the cool thing that we decided recently?
Yeah. So we obviously heard from a lot of you that you'd love to see the witch in print. For Nimble, the Nimble conversion of the witch in print. So we went back and forth and decided how we would want to do that. And what we landed on was that we'd love to, basically. So if you back Nimble physically, I believe we said, or you back physically, obviously, and then you'll get the witch class printed and lovely.
Yeah, if you back at a digital tier, obviously you get it. You get the PDF, you get digital. If you back Nimble at
Yeah.
a physical tier, then we'll just go ahead and include. We're going to print up the Witch booklet for Nimble that you can use and have at your table. So I personally don't like PDFs all
Hmm.
that much. I like to have a thing at the table that I can highlight and bookmark and stuff. So
Me too. Yeah.
very generous of Connor to offer that to people who are backing both.
It's gonna look great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And did you want to mention anything about the stretch goal, Connor, or we keeping
Oh
that under
yeah,
wraps for
yeah.
now?
Sorry. No. So yeah. So the as it stands, if you back Nimble physically, you'll get the witch with two subclasses built for Nimble. Lovely, and printed out. Think when we worked it out, we're about like 440 that have backed both faerie and Nimble. Um, and if by some wondrous sequence of events, by the end of both campaigns, that number goes up to 800, then we're going to add the additional subclass in for the witch. So
Hmm.
um, the third subclass, which we'll get into a little bit, I think, when we go through the class in a moment. And it'll be a bit more of a comprehensive booklet, a little bit more of a weighty little
Yep.
thing for you to have.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty decent sized booklet with art that I believe Connor's still working on
Hmm.
some of the new art and with the additional funding. Basically, I spent thousands of dollars like last week on just more art because like I'm a filthy art collector and I can't
We're
stop.
expensive. We're
Yes,
expensive.
art is very expensive
Sure.
if you don't have the time to do it yourself or the ability. So yeah, art is very expensive. So a huge chunk of the additional funding that we're getting is going toward more art, more pages, more content. It's like Connor and I were both just like big nerds and fans of this stuff. So like we want like personally, I want this. I want Nimble to do good because I want the box set that I can play with at my table, and I want it to be as good as it can be for my own selfish reasons. So I want to include as many cool things as I can. I'm sure Connor is much the same way.
That's the only reason I do most of this is just so that I can have it for
And
sure.
Connor just got done GMing his home game as well, just like a few minutes ago.
I did, yeah. It was a very, very emotional, intense session, so I'm still riding a bit of a high.
Absolutely. Stephanie plays games. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Crackle Tunes. All right. Good to see you guys. Awesome. Chris says now it will feel like it's intrinsic to the game. Yeah, love it too. How do you approach modifying the class for Nimble? Brennan asks. So we're going to get to the specifics a little bit later. So this is something so it's not done yet. So we're not. It's not something that like it's done and we're just like secretly like holding back part of the thing that we already finished. No, it's not
I
done.
wish.
Yeah. So we didn't
Yeah.
know how successful any of these things were going to be. So as we unlock more funding, it unlocks more ability for us. Basically, we can spend more time on it. So Connor and I are going to meet. So some things are easy. So like instead of spell slots, you get mana. Okay, yeah, that's easy enough. And then, we'll probably take some of the same things. So in Nimble at level 4 and level 5, you get a primary and secondary attribute increase. So some of the things are going to be pretty straightforward, but other things, like really weird things the witch class does that no other class does, like we're going to have to cook on that for a little bit. So we're going to keep all the flavor, as many of the cool mechanics as we can, as well as, sort of mash it together with the unique rules with Nimble to make it feel like this. I don't want this to just feel like an add-on. I want it to feel like an inherent natural class that just as natural as the cheat or the berserker or any of these other classes. So we're going to be putting a good bit of development time into this, and I think it's really going to be something that's going to be quite nice. Joshua
Yeah, it's going to be
Hernandez.
very fun.
Yeah, absolutely. He says, backed both. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you so much, man. Excited to use them in tandem. The art in Faerie is amazing. Well, you're looking at the artist right
Thank you.
there. Right there.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
Thank you very much.
Yuki Production says, I like Nimble Combat a lot, so much that I decided to make a custom ad read in my Pokemon TTRPG. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Pseudo Tradutor, not a fairy backer here, to be honest, but just wanted to say, Connor, this setting looks absolutely amazing. It is, yeah,
Thank you.
it is. It is. So maybe we'll
Thank you
get
very
him
much.
before things are all done. Okay, so let's read a little bit of the flavor of the witch. Let me scroll down so you guys can see it. We'll move that down. Candles glow around her feet as a hag-born woman, wrapped in furs, runs her fingers across ancient sigils. The knowledge of the witches before her twists her magic beyond recognition, which dances in the space something wholly new, a secret kept by only those who know how to speak its name. Be it for bane or boon, weal or woe, witches wield a magic unfamiliar to most, but ancestor to all. Their ways are strange, their reputation steeped in superstition. Witches are lauded by some and condemned by others, but regardless of where they find themselves, few are as adaptable and resilient as those that wield Athame and Mark. What is Athame?
As a class feature that's born out of some real witchcraft folklore. It's traditionally like a ritual dagger, but in the class it takes more of an amorphous role as sort of a focus adjacent thing.
Very cool, very cool. Anytime you have elder magic, I love that. Yeah, let's get into some of the high level things about what's going on in the witch. So hit point. Okay, so it's D6 hit point. So similar to like the wizard or sorcerer or mage.
Yeah.
Very cool. So they start out fragile a little bit. Dagger, sickles, quarterstaffs, light crossbows, short bows. Okay, very cool. Let's go to the magic of rite. Your time spent observing and practicing the rites and rituals of witchery grant you magic ability and access to spells. List of which spells available, and we'll get into the witch spells a little bit later. So spells, cantrips, mystic marks. Let me.
Yeah. So
let me scooch that.
mystic
Yeah, you want to talk
marks
about that? Go ahead.
that. Yeah. So that's our casting system for witches, which are it's adjacent to spell slots. So in the mechanics, it sort of explains the conversion, which is it's real simple. It's not.
Okay.
That's one thing I wanted to definitely get across was that it's not. You don't have to worry too much about it being, a lot of math and overly complex. It's the amount of mystic mark to spell cost for you to cast is just 1 plus the spell's level. No, sorry, the spell's level plus 1. Yeah.
Yep, makes sense. Casting a spell requires you to use a number of mystic marks equal to the spell's level plus 1. You have a number, so you have a certain number of those. You regain them on a long rest. Okay, very cool. And you've got a grimoire that you can replace. So I want to talk to you about diminution. Let's talk about that. You want to speak to that some?
Yeah, so that's sort of a foundational thing that witches can do, which is why we went with mystic marks from a design perspective versus say spell slots. Is you can do more with the marks than just cast spells. It's sort of a currency that the class uses for all of its magic potential stuff. And diminution is being able to reduce the potency of a spell to reduce the cost of it. So if you cast a spell, it lists a list of effects that come into place, but you reduce the mystic mark cost, and in doing so, the potency of the spell is reduced as well.
Cool. So if you want to cast a spell that's this big, but you've only got budget for this much, you're like, I'm going to cast it anyway. I love that.
Yeah.
Like I'm only used to like the sorcerer who can like I'm gonna burn extra stuff to do bigger things.
Yes.
Well, what about the opposite?
Yeah.
What if I want like I just need a little bit of this, right? That's really cool. Everybody's grouped up into a small area. I'm gonna cast a tiny fireball. That's cool.
You might not need the big ones all the time. So it gives you the option to preserve your resources and that kind of thing.
Yeah, downcast. Yeah, that's really cool. And it might be like smarter to do it. Like you don't want to blow up the building you're in, or you don't want to blow up your allies that are standing nearby. I'm gonna cast it smaller. Really cool. So you can basically downcast it. It sounds like the range of the spell
Yes,
is
yeah.
so it's basically one of these things, if I understand correctly. The range of the spell
It's
is
all of
halved.
them. So it kind of
Okay.
it
Okay.
halves all of it. It just chunks it down to whatever's applicable to that
Right.
spell.
So the range, the area of effect, number of creatures is reduced. So it gets smaller. So that's really really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go up to which is familiar. This is probably like if you've ever played D&D, you know that people love collecting pets.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk to us
Mm-hmm.
about the familiar?
Yeah, so obviously the like 5e already has Find Familiar, and that does originate from the sort of original British sort of folklore and Celtic folklore of familiars, which comes along with witches and cunning folk is what they used to be called, or at least a portion of them. But in the folklore, in D&D 5e, we often found that like familiars are just scouts.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's either they're normally go look at thing or go bother that guy so that I can hit him easier. Is mostly what they're used for outside of role play.
Mm-hmm.
But in the folklore, familiars are often spirits that would seek out people of magical potential and choose them, or they would be chosen by the person. And having a familiar meant that you were better at spell casting, not just it wasn't just a tool you used, it was them being there made your life as a spellcaster easier.
Mm-hmm.
So for the witch, we wanted to lean into that a bit more, give them an expanded list of familiars they get, and
Mm-hmm.
then also with their subclasses, tie unique familiars to every subclass. So for all three subclasses of the witch, each one comes with a unique familiar that only witches in that coven can gain access to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the coven of the hunt obviously takes it. Takes it and runs with that concept to a
Yeah.
full and more wild potential.
Yeah, so they can lean into like, hey, I not only do I want a familiar, I want like a pack of them. Is that the idea?
Ye- So less multiple, but
Mm-hmm.
more. So with the Coven of the Hunt, which is our like familiar subclass essentially,
Yep.
it turns the familiar into more of a combat usable creature,
Oh, okay.
um, as well as aiding in spells. So I believe it sort of helps you. It reduces the time for ritual casting and things like that. It
Mm-hmm.
sort of it makes your efficacy as a spellcaster better. So
Cool.
it's not just there to grant advantage or disadvantage or, turn into a spider and sneak through a window and then get stepped on,
Very cool. Very
which I think
cool.
we can all relate to.
So your summoning belt. So while you have a lot of mystic marks, the AC or armor of your familiar is higher, right? And then as you spin it, they get weaker.
Yes.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so this is the athame. So this is
Mm-hmm.
a feature you get at third level, which you get three choices of what athame you would like, and you pick them sort of based on what sort of playstyle you'd want to have.
Mm-hmm.
So the oak and mistletoe cane makes you
Here we
better
go.
at healing. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
it sort of fills that out if you'd like to be more of a support player.
Nice.
The ritual dagger means you can hurt more,
Mm-hmm.
and which is similar to like clerics have they're not built for massive damage output, but you can build one that is for big damage output.
Cool.
And then the summoning bell is, like you said, it's makes your familiar harder to kill, and it makes anything
Nice.
you summon harder to kill.
I
So
really like being able to pick. So it's not just like I'm the spellcaster class. I do this. It's like I'm a spellcaster, but spellcaster, but I can go this route, this route. It's sort of whatever the party needs. I like that. I really like
yeah,
that.
yeah, we didn't want to go too close to. I mean, again, like the cautionary tale is the design of the mystic that was
Hmm.
just good at everything, and we didn't want to build that. But we did want to provide players with a class where how your witch plays and feels is
Yep.
up to you, and how you build them. They'll never be good at everything, but they
Yep.
can be good at what you want them to be good at. Like the
Yeah.
witches of yore.
Yeah. Like someone said, like you can afford anything, but you can't afford everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Well, I want to encourage you guys to check out the Fairy backer kit page, and if you back both Fairy and Nimble, then you get this cool free witch class that we're going to be developing together specifically for Nimble. But it's not just the witch class. It also has some really cool other things, and we'll get to it in just a second. But there was something the fealty system. Could you
Yes,
could you talk about this, because I think out of everything, I'm excited about the witch
I
class
would
and
love
the
to.
fealty system.
Yeah, yeah. So just a real quick background. We did our last book, Tempest. That was a sort of seafaring setting. So that was, the pirate book. And with that, we developed our own ship combat system and all these sorts of things to fill that in. Loved it and realized that a setting is much better if it also is accompanied by a subsystem that makes the setting feel unique. And
Oh
when we were
yeah.
developing faerie as a feudal setting, we was trying to think of a system that would make sense that could mean that when you play in the setting, it feels different mechanically, not just in flavor.
Hmm.
So what the fealty system does is it rewards and punishes a party for acting in line with the political powers of the realm. So there's a sort of constant civil war going on between the Fae houses, the houses of Faerie, which are the seasonal houses, as well as there's five total. So,
Hmm.
no, sorry, six total. There's the four seasons that we all know and love, and then Avalon in the center, which is the sort of free city of mortals, which was in Faerie is built by all of the stranded mortals that end up there, have formed their own city, sort of in between all of the seasons, and that's
Just
Avalon. And then
just
on the
hearing the free city of mortals like that just makes my mind start thinking about what all that means and what that implies about all the other cities or other things. That's cool. Yeah, sorry, keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah. Um, and then the outer wilds, so to speak, of Faerie are populated by the House of Blight, which is kind of if you think White Walkers from Game of Thrones, but a lot more um, guided by intelligence, basically. So they're
Hmm.
sort of a outside the system, but you can build fealty with them too, if that's what you
Oh,
would like to do.
you know my
But
party's
the
gonna
way,
do that.
oh, someone's got to. That's why we put it there.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, the way fealty works is you basically earn renown through acting in accordance with the wishes of whichever house.
Yeah.
That tracks up a sort of point value, and that forms a currency that increases what you can do and what you can spend it on. So some of the things you can spend it on are kind of passive
Hmm.
and don't really cost much, and some of them are things that cost quite a lot and will actually reduce your renown. So it's the idea of building up favors with people, and then when
Yeah.
you call them in, you lose a little bit of the standing in the sense that you can't just keep asking for favors
Yeah.
endlessly
Okay, so
without
you're
earning it
doing
back.
like cool quests, you're doing things for them or things that they like.
Hmm.
Your bank account with them is going up. You're earning renown, and then you call
Yes.
on a
Yeah.
favor, and okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So if you start gaining renown with one faction or one of these groups, does that negatively
Mm.
impact some of these others?
Yeah. Well, it depends how you're gaining renown.
Okay.
So if you are doing things for a certain Fey house, there are plenty of things you could do for Fey houses that they wouldn't necessarily upset the others. But
Hmm.
say if you are killing a bunch of, you know, uh, bannermen of the House of Winter, the House
Sure.
of Summer is going to love it.
Okay.
The House of Winter is really not.
Gotcha.
But there's other things you can do that sort of cut the difference. And we also have like willed courts, like sort of free courts that exist in a much smaller spectrum that don't
Hmm.
have fealty tied to them, but acting to their benefit allows you to build up a wider renown that you can then apply to whatever house
Hmm.
you'd like.
Very
But in order
cool.
to get their favor, you have to pledge the fealty. So you do have to go to them and say,
Hmm.
we'd like to raise your banner, and then they grant you power, favor,
Very
etc.
cool. So sounds like a really flavorful and like light system to like encourage role playing and
Yes,
engaging with
yeah,
the story without it
yeah.
like dragging things down and becoming like a separate game that we're playing with this. Okay, cool.
Yeah, the last thing I'd ever want to do is turn DMs into, like a video game console where they
Yeah,
have to keep track of all points and all this kind of stuff. So
we're
no,
playing Monopoly while we play
it's
D&D. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, nothing that complex. It's like you said, simple, flavorful, and it kind of a lot of the combat stuff you can do
Hmm.
was weirdly enough born out of my intense love for Helldivers when it came out, and the
Hmm.
idea of sort of I don't know if you've played that game, but you can call in stratagems.
Ah,
It's
okay.
sort of like when you're in combat, you can call down airstrikes and that kind of thing.
Ah,
Um, but I wanted a fantasy equivalent of it. So it's that the balancing act is, do we save our fealty as a party and use that to get these bigger
ooh,
rewards, or are
yeah,
we kind of in a situation where one of us is going to demand, an airstrike to get
yep,
us out of it?
cool. Cool. In just a second, we're going to go over some of the new spells in Nimble. But before Connor falls asleep on us, you still with us, Connor? Uh-oh.
I am sorry,
Oh,
my connection appears to have cut out.
okay. Before we lose him completely, if you guys have any questions for Connor before he heads out, go ahead and type them in the chat now. We'll try to get you those. But I'm gonna ask him to give us just a quick overview of the 2 or possibly 3 subclasses for the witch,
Hmm.
and then I think we'll wrap it up with Connor, and we'll pick up with some more Nimble previews. So Connor, you want to give us
Um,
an overview of the different subclasses for the
yes,
witch?
yeah, yeah. Am I all back now? Am
Yeah, yeah, you're good. You
I'm
just
good with
froze for a
things?
second,
Great,
and you're better.
cool. I hope it was not unflattering. Yeah, so the three subclasses for the witch are they're covens,
Hmm.
of course.
Naturally, yeah.
But there's the coven. You have to. There's the Coven of the Hunt, which, as I said, is our sort of familiar combat subclass, which uh, basically buffs your familiar into being um, kind of closer to what I think we all wanted Ranger Beast companions to be in a way.
Oh man, that's cool.
A little bit more, yeah, a little bit more usable. And with the expanded familiar list, it gives you a lot more options as to what that might look like, including a blink dog and that kind of thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it also helps you get better at casting spells, like I said, all that kind of stuff. And the capstone for that, which isn't in the preview, but the capstone for that is sort of a very large buffed familiar version of whatever your chosen familiar is, that is, rideable sort of size every period.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and then there's the Coven of the Hex, which is it's the classic curse witch,
Mm-hmm.
the Macbeth witches, the curse your foes sort of thing, and that is built all around applying curses in combat and how that impacts what creatures can do and what you can tack on to spells and the like. And then the final subclass is the Coven of the Wart, was our stretch goal subclass, which is your like
It sounds
botanical witch. That's
disgusting.
your yeah. It's wart, like I think it's WORT, is in the
Right,
like the old English word for plant. But
right. Yeah, you
if
have to
you
see
want to
it
be covered in
spelled. It's
warts,
not it's
you
not what you
absolutely
think it
yeah.
is. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's your sort of botanical, which that's
Okay.
the one that, double double boil and trouble. That it's that sort of plants and herbs, and they gain access to components that, using different components, can change how your spells come out, and the more
Interesting.
horticultural side. And they get a unique familiar that is very much Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, if anyone's seen that, just the sort of
Okay.
Mario-esque massive mouth plant.
Nice.
Um, but real quickly, the only other thing is that the sigils are all that's another thing that witches get, which is
Hmm.
sort of meta magic adjacent. It's You can spend extra marks to change what your spells do, and covens get unique sigils alongside,
Which
almost like invocations and the like.
which is your favorite sigil?
Oh,
It's like picking a
can't drop
favorite child. I know, but
truly, because some of them are wacky. So I they do a lot of different stuff. Sigil of Division is the first one, which just lets you like halve an area of effect and then double it.
hmm.
So split a radius into half and then twice, which is fun. But I think my
Oh,
favorite is
okay.
the Sigil of Fortune,
Uh-huh.
because it just really leans into the dice gambling aspect of D&D, which I'm a sucker for. Which is that you can essentially give your foes a die to add to their saving throw against your spells, and
Mm-hmm.
then if they still fail, despite adding that die onto it, they get additional damage equal to whatever die you gave them,
Oh,
sort of
I love
scaled up.
that. I've never
Yeah,
even thought of that, but I instantly love that. That's my favorite.
it's high risk but high
Yes,
reward.
I love that.
Yeah,
You're a wild magic sorcerer. You're a chaos mage. You sigil of
yeah,
fortune. That is such a cool
yeah.
way to do it. That is such a cool way to do it. I
Thank
love
you,
that.
thank you.
All right, I saw this line and I just have to read it. The Coven of the Hex. The twisted ache of cursed bones, sudden nightmares that rob even the bravest of their courage, sickening darkness that snuffs out all but the boldest of lights. Like that's cool. Like, all right,
You
yeah.
really do it justice for
You
sure.
guys have to check if you haven't. Check out the faerie backer kit page. And if you don't want to like type it in, you just go to the Nimble page, and it's actually right there.
Bravest of their courage.
Let me pause that. Yeah, so it's right there. You just click it. I backed it personally with my own money. I'm getting the box. I think it's the Earl set where you get a box with cool dice and all sorts of stuff. So I'm looking
Yeah,
forward
old
to
stuff.
it. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Connor, thank you so much for taking the time. And here it is. Oh, look at that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it.
it. All right.
Yeah, I
and
hope you have a wonderful rest of the stream. I'll catch it tomorrow once I have slept.
yeah. All right. Have a good night, man. It's like 2 a.m. So
Wonderful.
yeah, have a good rest.
Yeah, it's late. It's late. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. See ya. All right. Cool. Okay. Very cool, guys. Appreciate Connor for hopping in. He's a real cool guy. Let's see. Ghostbit. My RNG luck would make the witch fortune 100 power. I think that is such a cool mechanic. Fairy looks very cool. JP, yeah, I think it looks really, really cool. I'm into the face stuff, but not like the cotton candy version that 5e sometimes has. I want it to be a little bit spicy. Question: what's surprised you the most up to this point in the creation process of Nimble? Ooh, that's a good question. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Better late than never. What surprised me the most up to this point? Well, I have been surprised by the amount of support that has welled up around Nimble. So, if you don't know, this is the second campaign. This is the second crowdfunder that I did. The first one, it was just I made some homebrew rules for my home table. And I thought other people would like it, so like I sold it like the PDF for like $4 and the like a printed thing for like $9. Yeah, I just wanted as many people to get this as I could, and I expected like I'm gonna lose some money. I might break even if I'm lucky, but it did fantastic and way better than I expected. And then basically immediately people started asking for, hey, you need to make this its own system, which I never. That surprised me the most. I think that surprised me the most. Finally, the cottagecore witch. That's right, Erica. So not witches with the huge bump on their nose. Yeah, no, not WART, WORT. Giant owl mount. That's right. That's exactly right. Who did? We will have to ask Connor. Maybe Connor will leave a comment down below once he wakes up tomorrow. Who did you pledge your fealty to, Connor? We don't know. Okay. Santuric, would you receive the physical witch booklet if you back the Nimble box set in the digital version of the realm? Yes. So if you back both at any level, you get the witch. Back both at any level, you get the witch subclass for the witch class for Nimble. And if you back Nimble at any physical tier, then yes, I'll send you the. I'm saying we like I have a team. Like this is the team. I will stick it in an envelope or in a box, and I will mail you the printed booklet. It's gonna be this size, just like the size of the other books. So our books are gonna be. This is Malice Ritter, fantastic game. It's gonna be this size. It's probably gonna be not many pages, but it'll be enough to be a little booklet of its own. So we'll get more details on that as that comes. But yeah, I'm really glad that Connor's letting us print that out as a physical thing. Stephanie says, my home game I run is a homebrew Celtic-inspired Fae game. It looks like this would fit. Oh yeah. You could definitely steal some stuff. Stephanie likes stealing things. Check out Stephanie Plays Games channel also if you guys haven't seen any of her content. And JP as well. I've got just right here. I've got like pretty much all of JP's like drawing dungeons. He's got like basically the best like zine factory that I've ever seen. So I've just got a bunch of them. My son, he's 8 and he loves drawing maps and things just like JP does because he's looked at these booklets. So check out JP's channel. He's fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. Let's see if there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions. If I missed your question, feel free to just write it again. And we'll get to some more Nimble previews. I think we can do some spells since we're talking about spellcasters. Warren says, if I'm trying to improve 5e but not trying to replace player character classes, is this or your first product the best option? So if you're in the middle of a 5e campaign, if you're in the middle of 5e campaign, the version 1 rules of Nimble are super easy. It's modular and easy if you want to test out, hey, what would it look like if we instead of action, bonus, action, reaction, movement, instead of that fiddliness, we just said, hey, you can do 3 actions, do it how you like. Or instead of spell slots, which is inconceivable, instead of spell slots, just use mana. You can pick and choose different things to speed up parts of your game however you like. So if you're in the middle of a campaign, you just want to tweak your existing 5e game, version 1 is probably what you want to do. But the ongoing campaign, I've described it as, and I hope it's not too hyperbolic, but it's kind of like going from D&D to playing Nimble. It's like color TV when all you had was black and white or like radio. Things go so much faster. I as the GM, like I have way more fun. I'm constantly surprised by the tactics my players pull off, and like I just love it how they can foil me, and I can like crit like 5 times in a row, and they can go from like almost full life to like 0. But like even when they hit 0, they don't just like fall over and they don't get to play. It's like no, now they have to think strategically in different ways. So test it out, see how you like it. You can even run a one shot with the existing preview packet that's free. But I would definitely recommend, if your table is at all open to trying it, I would definitely recommend the updated rules, updated classes. They just take advantage of the rules so much better. Like it's, I don't want to play like 80%, 90% of the classes of D&D. Like I'll play a rogue, I'll play a wizard or sorcerer. That's kind of it. But the Nimble classes, like they are made so that each one is really unique and really exciting and like really fun to play with a lot less waiting. Anyway, all right, that's done with the sales pitch. Let's look at let's look at the spell cards. All right, so this let me share my screen. Web browser. Yeah, you guys can see that. So the designs that you see here are these are already the old designs. We do have some new designs that I want to share with you. So as you guys see, so like this is the new design. Let me grab. All right, just so we can compare them side by side. So here is Rebuke. We'll copy that here. Just so there it is. We already had it. All right, just so we can sort of compare them side by side. I think the new design, and it's still a work in progress, but the new design direction I think is just much more solid and like really cool and evokes the feeling that I want to have. So the ones that we're going to be going over look like this currently, but we've got a new design language that things are going to be updated with, and because there's been so much support for the Backer Key campaign, I've been able to have more money to pay other designers to come help me think of new ideas and try different things to make things as good as it possibly can. All right, so let's look at some of the spells. We'll start with the fire spells. We'll start with the cantrips, and then we'll go from there. And if you guys have any questions, again, feel free to stick in the chat. Okay, so Flame Dart. So this is basically the Firebolt equivalent. This is the standard, like if a D10 on spending one action to deal 1d10 damage is sort of like the baseline. If something deals more damage than that, you would expect it to have some sort of drawback or some other penalty or some thing to make the Flame Dart or Firebolt, to make both of those sometimes worth it. So sometimes you want to deal more damage with a drawback. Sometimes you might want to deal less damage with some other boon. So 1d10 as an attack, like a free attack, not spending any resources, that is the baseline. So everything has been balanced off of that paradigm. And the interesting thing that you guys might see is that at high levels, so I'm trying to do things as much as possible to make it easy to remember, easy to manage for everybody at the table. So like if I ask you right now, like, what level do you get level 7 spells? Like, nobody knows. Like, one person might know. But in Nimble, it's you get level 7 spells at level 14, so it's just twice your level. Okay, and at what level do your cantrips upgrade? Like, nobody knows. But in Nimble, it's every 5 levels. Okay, so just little things like that make playing the game a lot easier. You don't have to look up things as much. If you're level 10, you have access to tier 5 spells as a mage. So it's half of your level. So every other level, you're gaining a new tier of spells. At least for the full spellcasters. So at high levels, you gain 5 damage for each fifth. So you gain 5 damage every time you hit level 5, level 10, level 15, level 20. So you get more frequent upgrades to your cantrips, and it's a lot easier to sort of grok. So 1d10, fire damage to any target within 60 feet. And something about Nimble is the ranges of the spells have been brought in, and weapons have been brought in pretty substantially. So there's no like 300-foot range things, because like the tables that we physically play on, like there's not that much space. There's not that many squares. So to keep things a little bit more tactical, a little bit more interesting, the range has been brought down substantially. You can still be at range and attack things far away, but you can't be like in the other zip code in attacking things over here. So so that's the idea. So Flame Dart costs 1 action. It's a fire cantrip, and it's pretty straightforward. Deal 1d10 damage, and on a crit, if you roll 10, a natural 10, the target gains the burning condition. It's not something you need to track. The GM doesn't care about it. The person next to you doesn't care about it. It's not a damage over time. It's just other spells might care about the burning condition. So it's just a thing that the person that casts a spell cares about, and it's super easy. Anything like damage over time spells, those are none of those. Like, nobody ever remembers to roll the thing. None of that. Okay, so we got Flame Dart, we got Enchant Weapon. So this is the other cantrip for level 1. A weapon you hold is enchanted with a magical flame for 1 minute. The weapon's damage becomes 1d10 plus your spellcaster level. And on a critical hit, it inflicts the burning condition. So you can start thinking about different combos or different playstyles as well with some of these things. And I'm thinking about allowing it to. Oh, excuse me. So something that we're playtesting still is whether or not we can allow the mage or whoever to enchant someone else's weapon. I think that's a cool little teamwork thing. But currently it is like the mage, while the mage is holding it, or while the spellcaster is holding it. It's something that we're thinking about. So Consume Flame. So you might be wondering, well, what does the burning condition do? Well, here's a cool one. So the first... So at level 2, you learn tier 2 spells. So level 1, you only know cantrips. You don't need to sort through 3 or 4 dozen cantrips and then 3 or 4 dozen level 1 spells at level 1. Like, no. Level 1, it's super easy. You have these 6 cantrips as a mage, for instance. Or these 4 cantrips as other classes. So you have a small but manageable list of spells, and each spell is like a sentence, maybe 2. So there's no paragraphs, there's no super long spells that like fill up a half a page. They're all super simple and easy to run, but with deep tactical ability. Okay, so Flame Dart, it inflicts a burning condition on a critical hit. Consume Flame, so it's a tier 1 spell, so it costs 1 mana, a level 1 spell. So it costs 1 spell slot, it costs 1 mana, so that's the idea. And it costs 2 actions. So all of your tiered, or most of your tiered spells are going to cost 2 actions. So they're much more powerful. But it deals 4d10 fire damage to a burning target. So you can only cast this on a target that's burning, and then, so this is an older draft, and it ends the burning condition on that target. And whenever if you can upcast it, you can spend additional mana to deal 2d10 additional damage for each additional mana spent. So it's a really high, so it punches way above its weight class, but it has the rider of you need to inflict a burning condition somehow. And other classes can inflict a burning condition, so you can have cool moments of teamwork. General J says, just coming out, will the spell cards be physical only, or will they be part of the digital assets too? Yeah, so everybody, anybody backing at a physical, so I'll just do it. So the box set gets the physical printed cards as well as the digital cards. You can print them out at home if you want to. It won't be quite as nice quality. So what we're doing for the printed cards is, I don't know if you've ever played Magic or other card games where they have like really nice, like you can bend them and they snap back and they're like really high quality. We're using the same black core paper with high quality offset printing for our cards, and they're going to be playing card sized. So really nice quality. So the box set tier gets that. They get the physical cards and the digital cards. The softcover tier gets the digital cards. And then the PDF tier, to keep it affordable, the digital only tier, if you want the digital cards, you can get that as an add-on. But I wanted to keep the base thing more affordable for people who don't care about the cards. So some people don't care about it, and that's okay. So I hope that answers your question. How many spells are you thinking of having? Currently, so there's 6 spell schools, kind of 7, but 6. And each one has about 10 spells, roughly. So roughly 60 spells, a little bit more than that. But the thing is, each spell is useful across the level curve. So I don't need 5 or 10 different spells that deal 1d10 fire, that deal some amount of damage at range. I don't need that many. If this one scales properly, then I have the damage dealing, like the simple damage dealing spell that doesn't cost resources. I have the conditional higher damage dealing spell that does some. So I don't need 50 different spells if like these 5 can do it. So there's much fewer spells, but each one is really good, and each spell could be the best spell to cast in some situation. So no spell is always the best spell to cast, like Fireball. Each spell has, there is a situation where this could be the best spell I could possibly cast. So that's the idea. I want to eliminate all the trap options. So if you have a spell like Fireball, then all other level 3 spells are compared to that. And if you don't pick Fireball, well, it's not an optimal build. So I don't like having spells that are so good that every other option is a trap option, or spells that are so bad that I would never even consider picking this. So each spell has been balanced with that kind of thing in mind. They're not all very samey, but at the same time, there are certain situations where this spell is going to be best, or that spell, you can combo and do teamwork and that kind of stuff. You might want to cast ice spells or cold spells more frequently if you have certain people in your party who care about that kind of stuff. You might want to cast fire spells more. So there's a lot of different things you can think about tactically. So that's how many spells there are. As a DM, I might finally know what spells my players have. Yeah, so there's no memorizing spells. If you're a level 2 mage, you have the fire, lightning, and ice cantrips and tier 1 spells. Those are spells you know. The interesting thing about the fun about D&D isn't necessarily picking this spell or that spell, or like, oh, do I remember this spell today? Did I guess correctly if I need to, pick fire spells today or not, or did I guess incorrectly? That's not the fun part for me. Maybe it's the fun part for you. The fun part for me is, how am I going to use the tools that I have? So the fun part isn't like sorting through 1,000 spells and then like picking and then Googling like what are the best spells, because you get tired of reading through so many spells. The fun part is like, how am I going to use these cool tools in the best way or the most creative way? So leaving room for creativity and teamwork and tactics and that kind of stuff, and combinations, setting this up and then having a cool payoff. That's what that's what's fun to me. So the choices that people make during the game is the fun. So like you made the choice to be a mage, right? So these are the spells you get. If you want different spells, then you choose a different class, right? And you do get to choose some spells later, but by and large, you don't have to worry about memorizing the spell or choosing this or this spell list or that spell list. All right. Warren asks, will the spell system be balanced across damage types so not all spells are fire spells? Will elemental or damage types have consistent effects? Yes. So each spell school definitely has a theme. And the theme of all of them, the theme isn't like, well, this is the damage dealing school. No, they all deal damage. They all can deal good amounts of damage. But like, for instance, the fire school, we'll just get into it. We'll keep going. You guys will see. You'll see. It's better to just show you. Great color choices, better use of space and stylish food. Thank you. Yes, there is a part of the book that will teach how to convert different things. And you can, if there's some spell in D&D that you just love, it's trivial to use it in Nimble if you want to. That said, it's not recommended to use combat-related spells because the combat spells are covered. But if there's some like weird like story spell, like there's like my buddy's favorite spell is like something where you can like build some mental palace. I don't know what it's called. It is like he built this whole fortress inside of his head doing something with some weird spell. All right, hey, bring it over. It's trivial to use that. How hard is it to convert 5e monsters to Nimble? It is dead simple. It takes like a second, and you do it on the fly. If the adventure, I'll just grab Icewind Dale. So if the adventure says, let me just find the first monster that I see. If the adventure says Null Vampire, and it has a stat block in the back, basically you can just run it as written. The only thing you do is, instead of rolling to hit and doing all the fiddly stuff that D&D says, you just roll the damage die. So this one, it has a spear attack. So spear, melee or ranged weapon attack, +6 to hit, reach 5 feet, or range, blah, blah, blah. Hit 14, 3d6 plus 4. So ignore everything. You just roll 3d6 plus 4. That's it. Super simple. So you can run stat blocks and monsters as they are. There is some guidance in the GM book about if you want to tweak the difficulty and change things to make things more interesting, you can, but you don't have to. You can just run it exactly as written. Super simple. No conversion really necessary at all. Okay. The fun part isn't sorting through 1,000 spells. The fun part is how I'm going to use these tools. Yes, absolutely. I'm glad we're on the same page, Brian. Feels like arranging things around elements misses out on some fun aspects of spellcasting, like illusions or conjuring, so illusions and conjuring and that kind of stuff is included as well. So I said there's 6 spell schools, and there's kind of a 7th one. So there is an arcane spell school that you can do a lot of these cool things. We talked about that last live stream. If you want to watch that, I think toward the end, we can get more into that in a little bit. All right, let's look at some more spells. So Consume Flame, high damage dealing spell, but it's conditional. You have to set it up first. Heart's Fire, this is a tier 2 spell for fire. 2 mana, costs 1 action. You give an ally within 60 feet an extra action. So if you have a berserker who's like hopped up on rage and he's got a whole pile of fury dice and he wants to just smack things harder, you can say, smack things harder. You get an extra attack this turn. Or if you have someone who needs to run or someone who's dying and you need to give them an additional action so they can heal themselves and do something else, you can teamwork and do really interesting things. You can give someone one of your actions, and the teamwork that this opens up is really, really cool. There's Heart's Fire. Flame Barrier. All the different spell schools have their own sort of defensive reaction type of spell. So Flame Barrier, 1 action. So you spend an action because it's a reaction. Tier 3, so it costs 3 mana. Reaction, when you would defend, you defend for free. So you cast this as a reaction when you would defend, and you get to defend for free. And then until the start of your next turn, melee attackers against you take key fire damage. So if you're a mage, your key stats are intelligence and wisdom, and you just pick one of those. So if your intelligence is 3 and your wisdom is 2, anytime you're attacked in melee this round, your attacker takes 3 fire damage every single time. And they gain the burning condition. All right, here now we're talking. So they gain the burning condition. They shouldn't have touched you because bam, you're about to blast them. Okay, and you can upcast it to add plus key damage for each additional mana spent. So if you're fighting monsters that are dealing little amounts of damage but lots of attacks, all right, or minions, they're coming at you, they're gonna blow themselves up. Really cool ability. It doesn't make you more survivable necessarily, but it is a sort of defensive, offensive spell. Pyroclasm is our take on the fireball spell. So this is a range from you. So you as a spellcaster, it's not something you can lob. It's not always the best spell to cast. You have to be in the thick of it to some extent. Creatures within 15 feet of you take 6d10 fire damage on a failed dex save and a half damage on save. But if creatures are burning already, they automatically fail the save. And then you can upcast it. So for each additional mana you spend, you add 5 feet to the explosion radius. So this can get huge if you want it to. So it's a more predictable amount of damage. 60-10 is nothing to sneeze at. Huge amount of damage. And if you can set up a burning condition, then creatures just automatically fail. Really, really cool. Fire Embrace, so don't worry about some of the layout stuff. This is all drafted, it'll all get sorted out. Fire Embrace, so this is the first concentration spell for the Fire class, the Fire School. Concentration up to 1 minute, this is tier 5. All creatures within 30 feet gain the burning condition. So you can just, boom, everybody's burning. While burning this way, all damage resistance is suppressed and immunity is reduced to resistance. So again, not every fire spell is directly damage dealing. You have defensive spells, you have conditional spells, you have teamwork spells, but they're all very fiery. They're all spicy feeling, okay? So if you're encountering things that have damage resistance or immunities or anything like that, you can wipe that away or you can suppress that. And then you can also combo, you can immediately apply the burning condition to a bunch of different creatures and set up other cool things. So the second highest fire spell is Living Inferno. This is a tier 7 spell. You become a pillar of living flame. Until the end of your next turn, you gain the effects of Flaming Barrier. So anytime you're attacked in melee, attackers will take fire damage. And they'll gain the burning condition. And that at the end of this turn and your next turn, you cast Pyroclasm for free. So you become this walking bomb, this living inferno. So the turn you cast it, wherever you're standing, boom, you cast a Pyroclasm on everything. And the next turn you can move around, move wherever you want, run to the middle of all the bad guys, cast some spells, and then boom, you Pyroclasm again for free. So it's something that you can set up and do over multiple turns as well. Or if you have another mage in your party, or if you cast certain spells, you can gain additional action. So normally this is going to take all 3 of your actions. But if you can gain an additional action somehow, then you can cast this, run up to where you need to do, and then boom, explode, and then explode again. So some cool ways to do things over multiple turns or with teamwork. And then the big mamma jamma for the Fire School, the tier 9 spell is Dragon Form. You take, so it's 6 actions. Okay, so your first turn you have 3 actions. You spend all 3 actions to start casting this spell. Okay, your next turn comes around, you end your turn, you get all 3 actions back. When your turn starts, you spend all 3 actions. So you have to cast this over multiple turns, unless you can set up some crazy thing where you can get 6 actions on one turn. It's possible, but that'd be hard to do. So you can cast spells over multiple turns, or perform any actions over multiple turns if you want to. And we talked about that last time as well, if you want to check out the previous live stream. So you take the form of a huge red dragon. So the second turn you cast it. So immediately once this is cast, you gain 3 actions back. So you're not skipping 2 turns. You're really setting this up for just 1 turn. So basically for 1 turn, you're asking your party, hey, you guys need to protect me. I'm doing something big. And your party rallies around you to protect you. So you gain 3 actions. You gain 10 times your level, temp HP. You gain a flying speed, so it's going to be like 100, 200 HP, some large amount of temporary hit points. You gain a flying speed of 80 feet, and armor equal to your level. So if you're level 17, you gain 17 armor. And you gain 2 new attacks, Tooth and Claw, which is 1 action. It is a reach, you gain a 10-foot reach, and the attack die is 1d20 plus your level slashing damage, and this ignores armor. If you've never rolled an attack and your damage die was a d20, oh man, it feels good. So this attack will rarely ever miss, like 95% chance it's going to hit, and it ignores armor, and so it deals 1d20 plus your level slash damage. And then you have Immolating Breath. This is something that you can do once. It costs 2 actions, and you can use this one time. 60-foot cone, DC 20 dex save, and you deal you roll a number of d6 equal to your level. So if you're level 20, 20 d6 fire damage in a 60-foot cone. You can maintain this form for as long as the temp HP granted by this spell remains, and it's a maximum of 10 minutes. When the spell ends, you gain the dying condition. So you lose all of your hit points. So when you lose the temp HP, this spell ends, you go to 0 hit points, you gain 1 wound, you gain the dying condition. So the strongest spells are clearly the strongest spells, but they have these drawbacks or these conditions where you need to be sure you don't just use this when you're fighting 3 goblins, right? You use this when you really need it. Turning into a dragon is taxing on the body. It hurts you. It's something that normal people cannot do. Really cool spell, but to prevent going Nova and doing this constantly, there are these interesting limits on the highest level spells. And when there are these limits, you can push the spell and make it way, way better because people aren't going to be casting it every single combat. So anytime there is this only works if, or this works but, those conditions or those drawbacks make it so that we can push the spell and make it way stronger or way cooler or give it more utility than we otherwise could without breaking the balance of the game. Centric, the 3 goblins had it coming. Yeah, they did. They shouldn't have messed with you. They absolutely had it coming. Albustine S, flame on using living. Yeah, flame on, exactly. Ghostbit, what if they are 3 legendary goblins? Well, then obviously you have to turn into a dragon. Obviously. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to need to buy more dice for this one. You've got enough dice. Nimble rules states that you can only take 1 time. Yes, so you can defend. You can take each reaction just once per round. There are some rare exceptions to that, but not too much. Stephanie's got a bounce. Thank you so much for coming, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Fire spells, does this hit allies? Yes, fire spells hit allies. So fire deals high damage, but it's indiscriminate. Other spell schools, they deal, they're more selective, so it can target only allies or only enemies. So different spell schools have different flavor like that. Is there going to be guidance in the gym book how to create our own spells? There isn't currently any plans on guidance how to create your spells. There's guidance on how to bring spells in from outside, and you can use that. You can use, there's going to be spells across all the different spell tiers, so you can use that as guidance. So like this is about how much damage a tier 5 spell should do, for instance. So you could certainly use that. And once we get to beta testing, if more guidance is needed or wanted, then yeah, we could certainly provide that. If I get the box set, when will the PDF be available before the box set is sent? Yes, Hugo. And I think we have like 9 days left in the campaign. We've got 9 days left. So in about 9, maybe 10 days, the PDFs are going to be sent out immediately, basically. They're going to be sent out in waves. So like the GM book isn't ready, the adventure isn't ready. Certain parts. So I think we're going to send out the core rules first, so everybody can review that, and then shortly thereafter we're going to send out maybe half the classes and then the other half the classes. But the goal is to send it out right away. I don't want to wait for everything to be sent. No, you get sent right away. We're going to do beta testing. We're going to get a lot of feedback. So yes, I want to get this into your hands as soon as possible. Brian Rock backed. Thank you so much, Brian. Appreciate the support. I've been curious about this for a while, and today's preview and Q&A covered my last question. Fantastic. Grondin says, hi, European backer here who saw your post about shipping being more affordable. Will you be able to expand on the subject, or is it too early for that? I want to back at the box level depending on that. Okay, yeah, so one of the cool things about working with Connor, the guy who's running the faerie project, he is based in the UK, and they already have partners and plans set up for making it easier and cheaper for people in the UK and EU. So yeah, I'm talking with him. We're working that out. I'm quite certain that the shipping prices, fulfillment, are going to be much more reasonable. So in the realm of like $15 to $20, most likely. So yes, that is definitely happening. That is definitely happening. So we don't have the exact quotes yet, but the estimates that I've been seeing, the estimates are, $14, $15, maybe as much as 19 or 20. So it's somewhere in there, but it's not going to be like 30 or 40. And if it is, then I'm just going to eat the cost beyond that. But for EU backers, UK backers, it's going to be around 15. You could say maybe just a little bit more, but not a lot more. So I hope that answers your question. You need to partner with someone in Brazil, then. I'd love to. So a lot of these partners who do fulfillment, they have warehouses all over. So I want to get the shipping cost down for as many people as I can, as low as possible. So I do understand that there are people outside the EU and outside the US, and I'm working on that. It just takes time. But thankfully, we do have a few weeks and months between when the campaign ends and when we need to start shipping, that we can figure out a lot of these logistics. So the prices that are on the backer kit page are like worst case scenario. And in all likelihood, it's going to be lower than that. Just how much lower, it's a little bit too early to tell because one, I don't know how much the box set is going to weigh. So some things depend on that, and that kind of stuff. So I can guarantee it's not going to be higher than that. If it is, I'll just go and eat the cost of that. So that's fine. So it's not going to be higher than that, but I am doing what I can to make sure it is lower, as low as possible. Okay. All right. Now let's go back. Let's look at some more spells, you guys. So those are the fire spells. Let's look at the ice spells. So the fire spells by default deal 1d10. 1d10. So the ice spell is 1d6. So less damage, but let's see. Let's see why it deals less damage. So deal 1d6 cold damage to any target within 90 feet. Okay. So the cold spells have longer reach than the fire spells to compensate for that. And you get advantage against creatures that are slowed. So it's 1d6 with advantage against creatures that are slowed. What is slowed? Any creature with actions or movement hampered is slowed. So anything that's dazed or grappled or prone or standing in difficult terrain, anything like that is slowed. Okay? So any creature that is grappled or in difficult terrain or anything like that, you get advantage. So it's 1d6 with advantage. So you're going to crit far more, you're going to miss a lot less, and a lot of the cool abilities trigger when you crit or when you miss or when you do these different things. So the different reasons why you would have, when you would use different die sizes really matters. So you can tactically really optimize that a lot. We're talking about 10 spells roughly to each school, so it's one cantrip and one each tier. Mostly, yes. So for some, fires, so the fire spells go tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 7, 9. So not every tier is represented. And then for other spell schools, there's more than there's extra cantrips. Like the Shadowmancer has its own special cantrips. And like the Songweaver has its own special cantrips, and so there's a few extras, but largely there's like 9 or 10 spells per spell school, and then there's a handful of other utility spells that are available as well to everybody who can cast spells. So Ice Lance, and as you level up, it'll deal plus 3 damage, plus 3 cold damage every 5th level. So even at level 20, you could be casting Ice Lance and not feel bad about it. Biting Fog. So this is the first concentration spell for ice. One action, cantrip. You create a 10-foot opaque cube of icy fog adjacent to you. So it blocks line of sight because it's opaque. And it's an area of effect. Creatures in it take 1d6 cold damage when you create it and at the end of their turn. So things that are standing next to you are penalized for standing next to you. So you don't want bad guys standing next to you, obviously, as a mage or spellcaster. And at high levels, it deals plus 3 damage. So a cool little AoE that's near you. It blocks line of sight. You can combo it with different things, but a nice little utility spell as well. Glacial Shard. This is the first damaging tiered spell for cold. Deal 3d6 cold damage to a target within 90 feet. And on a critical hit, okay, so the Ice School cares about critical hits. On a critical hit, a medium or smaller target is knocked prone, and it's 3d6 with advantage against a slowed creature. So Ice School cares about, hey, are you standing in difficult terrain? Are you grappled? Are you slowed? Are you prone? All that kind of stuff. you get advantage against it. So if you're attacking a prone, so normally if you're a spellcaster and you have a creature who is prone, you have disadvantage when you're attacking them from range because they're prone, they're laying flat. But ice, for Glacial Shard, you get advantage instead of disadvantage, and that's being clarified as well. So if something is prone, you don't want to cast fire spells at it because you have disadvantage. But Glacial Shard, boom, comes down from the top. You have advantage against that creature because it's slowed. Really cool way to both set up and pay off the things in the ice spell. And again, other classes can grapple and slow and do different things. So we have Frost Shield. So this is the reaction defensive spell for ice. Reaction when you would defend, increase your armor by one of your key attributes for this round, and then you defend for free. So if you have like 5 armor and you have 5 intelligence, your armor becomes 10 and you defend for free. You reduce the damage from an attack by 10. And if you upcast it, the damage mitigation can really scale a lot. So you get additional 5 armor each time for each additional mana that you spend. A really cool little reaction spell. Frost Nova. This is one of my favorites. Frost Nova. Creatures within 15 feet of you take 4d6 cold damage, and the area is difficult terrain until the end of your next turn. Okay, so they're slowed. Surviving creatures must make a dex save or fall prone. So if you're surrounded by like 10 things, you don't need to make 10 different saving throws. If half of them are going to die anyway, they take the damage, they just die. Okay, so you're cutting down the number of game actions that you need to take to pull this spell off. If only 1 or 2 creatures survive, the GM only has to make two dex saves, speeding up play. So rather than Fireball, everything has to make a dex save and everything is slow. No, I'm thinking of ways to make gameplay at the table feel cool and feel flavorful, but also play quick. Like, it's cool when I'm casting the Fireball against 1,000 enemies, but if the guy next to me is casting Fireball and it's making me wait longer, then it's less cool. All right. So we're thinking about the whole table. So only the creatures that survive have to make the dex save. Okay, surviving creatures must make a dex save or fall prone, and then creatures that were already prone are stunned during the next turn. So really powerful ability. If you can knock prone a bunch of creatures and then Frost Nova, boom, all of a sudden you've got a whole group of monsters that are stunned. Really, really cool. And upcasting isn't just boring, dealing more damage. No, you increase the radius. Okay, increase the radius. All right, Icebound Aura. This is concentration up to 1 minute. The space within 90 feet of you is difficult terrain. So every creature within 90 feet of you is now slowed for your other ice spells. You and 1 ally are immune to this effect. Okay, so you and the cheat, like you guys, you can ignore this. And when you upcast it, you can target 1 additional ally for each additional mana spent. So you can make everybody else slowed, everybody else in difficult terrain, and then you and your party are zipping around, moving around, and you're casting spells, and you're doing cool stuff. That's Icebound Aura. Glacier Strike. This is 2 actions, a tier 5 spell. You summon a shard of the Everglacier to crush your foes. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You choose a 10-foot square, so 2x2 square, within 90 feet of you. Targets in that area suffer 8d6 cold damage. And then targets within 5 feet of that take half as much. And then that entire area permanently becomes difficult terrain. So you have a relatively small area, a 2x2 square, or a 10-foot by 10-foot square, takes a ton of damage. And then people adjacent to that take half as much. And then that whole section is now difficult terrain permanently. You make a crater, you like explode the ground, or there's ice shards sticking up out of the ground. And then upcasting, you can increase the initial square, the radius by a bit. So really cool spell that does all of the things that you want it to do as an ice mage. So this is tier 5. Now we jump to tier 8. Okay, tier 8. Cryo Tomb. A creature within 90 feet is entombed in ice on a failed strength save. While entombed, they are incapacitated and immune to damage. Okay, so you can target one of your allies who's dying and being mobbed by a bunch of bad guys, or you can target the bad guy who's doing all the scary things. So while entombed, they're incapacitated and immune to damage. This lasts as long as you survive, or until it melts or is destroyed by natural means. And we're going to clarify that you can end this at will as well. The creature may repeat the save once every 10 days. Huge or larger creatures have advantage on the save. A small or smaller creature has disadvantage. And upcasting this, since it's a tier 8 spell, you can only upcast it once. You gain +5 spell save DC for each additional mana spent. So a really interesting crowd control spell that has more impact on the story. So you entomb the big bad evil guy in a tomb of ice, and he's dealt with temporarily, but he's still there. And now we need to take him back to town and figure out what to do with him before he escapes. Right. So cool story implications, cool ways to save an ally in a really tough spot, or save yourself in a tough spot. So interesting spell. Not one where the use is immediately obvious, but it's one that can really do powerful things in a pinch. Ghost Pit says one of my favorites. I don't know which one that was about, but yeah, they're all pretty cool. Pseudo Troubadour, look, that's one of the 3 goblins in the middle of the ice. Yeah, there he is. We got him, boys. Will Cryotomb not end up having the same problem as something like Force Cage, where it can immediately end almost every encounter? So first, it's a tier 8 spell, so it costs 8 mana. Legendary monsters, they have legendary resistance. They can resist this. If you try to do this against a dragon, even if it doesn't have any of its legendary resistances left, if it's huge, it has advantage on the save, and a dragon might already have advantage. So it can roll 3d20, and if at that point it still fails, then you deserve to have the dragon in the Cryotomb. But again, every 10 days, the dragon is be repeating the save. So wherever you stick this block of ice, there's going to be some problems, right? So does it have that problem? I think far less, because Force Cage. Actually, let's 5e tools. Let's look at Force Cage. Is it one word? It's one word. See how many times I've cast the spell. An immobile, invisible cube shape. All right, so we have to get past all the words. Let me see if I can resize this for you guys. When you cast a spell, any creature. What I'm trying to find is if. Prison in the shape of the cage, blah, 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 blah. Prison in the shape of the box. When you cast a spell, any creature completely inside the cage area is trapped. Okay, they're super trapped. Creature inside the cage can't leave by non-magic means if the creature uses teleportation, charisma save, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what makes Force Cage unfun and kind of dumb is that in similar spells, they're stuck in a cage, but you can still damage them. You can just keep wailing away at them, and they're stuck and they can't really hit you. With Cryotomb, they're immune to damage. You can't. So it's a pause button on a fight, so you can regroup and rethink it. But they're incapacitated, but also immune to damage. So there's this really powerful thing, completely incapacitated for maybe days or years on end, but also you can't kill them while they're in there, right? So the powerful spells have these different trade-offs, and even though this is like 2 or 3 sentences, it's way less than this, right? It's maybe this long. So even our longest spells are way easier to understand and read than all of this shenanigans. So yeah, that's Force Cage. Legendary goblins keep sending dragons at us. Yeah. Why use it on dragon when there's legendary goblins out there? Wake up, people. Force Cage had no save. I think they can. There's a save after, once you're in it. There's a charisma save. Yeah, I don't even want to read any more D&D spells. They're too complicated. I feel like Nimble is a fair amount easier, in particular for the GM, but also for the player. The character sheet alone is so much more streamlined. Yeah. I can't get over the tax form type of character sheets. It's too much. If you need that much stuff to play a game, just play a video game. Contrasting Roller 5e and Nimble 5e. How much easier is Nimble to pick up? Quite a bit. It's really for GMs, and new GMs. It's really easy to pick up. kind of like chess or checkers, maybe not chess. It's easy to pick up like in learning how it works, but it's very, very deep in learning like all of the tactical depth. And if you want to super optimize things and calculate and all of that, you can, but you don't need to. You can just, if you want to teach your wife, for instance, how to play, you just give, here's the pre-printed character sheet. There's your character. Let's start playing. And in 10 seconds, you start playing. And you teach how to play as you go. You don't need to read a ton of rule books. All right, so here's a player's handbook. All right, read that first. So, and then here's these other additional things. So the first time I ever played D&D, my DM Trevor, he gave me like 3 books. The player's handbook. There's a Dungeon Master's Guide, I think. It was Volo's Guide to Monsters, Tasha's, 3 or 4 books. He's like, boom! All right, here's your options. Pick one. So now there you go. I love D&D. It's just some things are a little bit hard. Cryotomb looks more like a petrification than Force Cage. Petrification, in the sense that they can't do anything, but there is still the narrative chance of them escaping. So when you're petrified, you're at the mercy of other people to save you, but they can escape from the cryotomb. And that might be a cool adventure. The wizards at the great capital city, they trapped bad guy in cryotomb, and then when they brought him back to capital city, he escaped. And then now we have a cool quest. Like, so these spells are not just spells that the players can use, the GM can use it too to make really interesting scenarios, really cool things happening. Good evening. Have you shown some of the martial classes? Not tonight, but yeah, if you guys are interested in looking at some of the martial classes next time, we could definitely do that. I think maybe Friday or Thursday we might do another live stream. Look at some of the martial classes. Maybe the commander. The commander is sweet. Commander is really cool. The Zephyr, our take on the monk, is really cool. I don't like the monk very much. I would not be interested in playing that. But man, the Zephyr is spicy. It does cool stuff. So yeah, you guys let me know what you want to talk about next. Will the Nimble book be on Amazon? It will not be. Amazon is a difficult... I love Amazon as a customer. I've got Prime. I get the 2-day shipping. But as if you're trying to sell things on Amazon, it is difficult. I'll just say that. Very, very difficult to work with. But I will be selling it later on the nimble5e.com website. But it will be more expensive than it is now. So the everybody on the backer kit is getting a much lower price than it will be afterwards. So just for reference, on the first Kickstarter that I did for Nimble version 1, the PDF was $4, and now I'm selling the PDF for $15. So if that, and not that I'm going to like quadruple the price, but like the price is going to go up a little bit. Are there any plans to add supplements to the system later? Yeah. So I'm working on a version of the rules for children, for kids, middle school, library, after-school programs, that kind of thing. It's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. And then people have been asking for a monster book, maybe some more adventures. I'd love to do an Artificer and Scion class. I think that is beyond the scope of this book. But yeah, more races and subclasses and all sorts of... I'd love to do that kind of stuff. Like, I will regularly wake up at 3 a.m. and have cool ideas. I'll be awakened out of deep slumber, and I'll just have to type it or write it down before I forget. So I've got far more ideas than I can fit into this current project without making it take longer, and I don't want it to take longer. So all the work that's being done right now is making what is there better. Question, did you already talk about how armor class is handled by your roll combat damage? Warren asks. Yeah, so for players, for heroes, there's no armor class. When monsters hit you, if they don't roll a 1, they hit you. But players get a new defend reaction, so when you defend... you reduce the incoming damage by amount equal to your armor. So if you have 10 armor and something attacks you for 12 damage, you defend, you take 2 damage. You can do that just once per round. So for heroes, that they get a say over when they take damage or not, and it keeps people engaged. So rather than like wake me up when it's my turn, like it doesn't matter if I'm paying attention or not when we're playing D&D, because like whatever happens, I can't do anything. But with Nimble, you're paying attention. You can defend. You can interpose you can have people interpose for you. You can do different really interesting things. So that's how it works for heroes. For monsters, most monsters again don't have any armor. If you hit them, you hit them. You deal 10 damage, they take 10 damage. A few monsters, like if you have like the goblin who has a helmet and a shield on, he might have medium armor. So rather than unarmored, he has medium armor. If your attack is normally 1d10 plus 3, medium armor says just the dice. So he takes just the 1d10. So it saves time. There's fewer game actions. So the goblin is only going to take the d10 damage. If there was a goblin with a helmet and a breastplate and a shield, and he was fully kitted out, or like a paladin or a dragon, they might have heavy armor. So they would take the d10, no additional modifier, d10, cut in half. So just the dice, cut in half. So heavy armor is really, really strong, but rare. Medium armor is quite strong, but maybe like a quarter of the monsters you'll encounter will have that. But the bulk of monsters, it just goes super quick. You just attack, you deal that much damage. That said, whenever you crit, if you have a critical hit, you ignore armor altogether. So the rogue with a d4 small dagger, they're going to crit and then boom, deal a whole bunch of extra damage, ignoring the heavy armor, ignoring the medium armor. So it's a really cool way to the berserker with a d12 weapon. He's going to attack the unarmored guy, and the rogue is going to go attack the armored guy. So they can divide and conquer. I'll get this guy, you get that guy. You can tactically think about cool ways to strategize that way. I hope that answers your question. What races are confirmed to be in the player book? Let's see. Got it open here. And this is just what is currently here. We've got all the good standard ones like humans. I can confirm that. 1 second, sorry, can't find it. I can't find it right now. Oh, there it is. It's in the character book. Races. We got human, elf, dwarf, halfling. So those are the 4 common races. So in pretty much any campaign setting, those are typically going to be allowed. And there are a bunch of what I'm calling exotic races. And before you can choose those, you have to check with your GM. These are races that may or may not fit in the campaign setting. Your GM might say, yeah, do whatever you want. But they might say, like, no flying creatures, no whatever. Like, we're not having any Ninja Turtles in this campaign. Okay, so that kind of thing. So there's Bun, like little bunnies. There's Dragonborn, kobolds, tieflings, goblins, orc, birdfolk. So call your birdfolk whatever you want. Stoatling, and a stoat is like a little weasel. And if you want to flavor it, instead of a stoatling, you want to be like a badger thing or a this thing or that thing. Like, flavor it whatever you want. But it's like a little vicious little creature. There's a planar being, and oozling, and construct. So those are the exotic races. So I don't know how many that is, but there's a few, a dozen or so. Bun. Yeah, I love the bun. Gunslinger, there is no gunslinger currently. But if you wanted to flavor like the hunter as a gunslinger instead of a bow, like you can certainly do that, I guess. But I know the fantasy of the gunslinger is a little bit different. No current plans, but I also didn't have any plans to do a sign class, and then people started cooking on the Discord, and they started inspiring me to start thinking about it. In testing, do monsters actually just fall over quicker, less hits, rounds, program it do the damage? So basically, do monsters fall over quicker? So an encounter in 5e, if it's like 5 players, 5 heroes, and 5 goblins, in 5e, players and goblins are missing about half the time. So if it might take 4 or 5 rounds of combat, and each round might take 10 minutes. So like, I don't know, maybe like 40, 50 minutes. In Nimble, you're not missing half the time. You're missing at most like 25% of the time, or even less, like maybe 8%. So you're hitting way more often. So the gameplay loop of doing a thing, nothing happens. I roll to attack and I miss. Like that's just extra time where nothing happens. So not all of that is cut out, but a substantial portion of that is cut out and removed. So you're sort of cutting to the good stuff. Like in a movie, you usually don't see people like cooking their breakfast and putting on their belt and their socks and tying their shoes in a movie. No, like Fast and the Furious, like they cut to the racing. They cut to the good part. You know, there's some down parts where like they're talking and doing things, but you don't see them flossing and brushing their teeth and all this sort of stuff because the movie isn't moving forward. In the movie, everything that you see is pushing the story forward and things are happening. Right? It's not just all explosions, but you know, most of it is the good stuff. So in Nimble, we have cut out like 90% of that filler and fluff so that yes, the combat goes quicker. So instead of 4 rounds, it might be 2 rounds, but both the monsters and the players are taking more damage more quickly. So the combat goes quicker, but also the players have more ways to mitigate and avoid the damage too, as well as work together. So you can defend yourself, you can interpose for other people, you can do lots of different things, but monsters and players are both hitting more often. So that 40, 50 hour-long combat might only take 10 minutes in Nimble. Like you get it and you get out. So instead of having like, well, that was our, you know, one of our 2 possible combat encounters that we have time for tonight, it's like, no, we can have like 5 or 6 or 7 combat encounters. And then once you can do that much, like you can throw like little tiny like 2 goblins at a party of 5 people, and maybe the 2 goblins just chip in like just like 10 damage, just a little bit of damage against one of the heroes, but you know that's going to matter because of all of the next encounters. So you can have widely different kinds of encounters too, because you know it really matters. And with the resting rules, you can't just like rest after every encounter either. So yes, things go quicker. Monsters are not like weaker. It doesn't feel like you're fighting a cardboard, like a wet paper bag. The encounter balance is roughly the same. And there are tools that the GM book is going to have where you can dial in the counter really exactly where you want it very easily too. So at certain levels, it might be a little bit harder, a little bit easier. You can dial it in way easier. The balance is much less balanced on a knife's edge. With Nimble, you have a lot more room to try different things without breaking the encounter altogether. So it's much more forgiving for the GM as well as for the players. So you can make it super hard and really crunchy if you want to. You can make it more narrative more easily. You can dial it in exactly where you want it to be. What was the hardest thing about revamping the combat rules? I mean, so like basically every suggestion that people have is like, yeah, that's how it was initially, and then we changed it. So like, well, what if like just a lot of testing. So initially it was like, well, what if you roll the d20 and not the damage dice? And the higher you roll with the d20, the more damage you do. Yeah, that's cool, but like the damage dice is the cool half. Like when you're rolling to hit and you're rolling to see how much damage you do, if you want to eliminate one of those, why would you eliminate the fun one, right? So we tried that. We tried letting people defend however much they want. If you have an action you want to defend, you can defend. But that was way too good. That was way overpowered. It really warped the balance of the game. Once I stumbled upon the 1 damage die being the chance to hit, the chance to crit, and the chance to miss, like that was when I feel like I stumbled upon something cool. And I'm sure I'm not the first one to come up with it. I'm just the first one that I know of. I haven't studied every game out there, but that mechanic that makes the different die sizes really matter and makes the strategy more interesting. I think that was sort of the eureka moment for me. Raccoon folk, yeah, that's right. You could be a raccoon if you want to be. Do you plan to support concentration the same way that it was managed in D&D? Concentration is largely similar, but because the chance to hit is much higher, you only have to make a concentration check when you're critically hit. So the amount of times you'll need to make a concentration check is about the same. So only when you're critically hit, and that makes sense. Like if someone's slapping you around and hitting you, and like you're a mage and you're used to casting the spell and concentrating, like it makes sense that you're able to sort of resist little things. But if someone comes and like stabs you in the kidney, all right, like you might need to focus on that. Let's see. So when the backer kit is over, will the PDF be available right away or soon? So it's going to be available as soon as possible. Maybe not like the minute the thing ends, but maybe like the next morning. I'm actually going to be out of town the day that the backer kit is ending. I'll have my computer with me, and I should have internet access. Fingers crossed. We've checked on all of that, so it should be fine. But barring any weird mishaps, it's going to be very soon after, like the day after is my goal. Kip says, my concern was how they feel more than speed. Yeah. They feel basically the same. So a goblin is this tough in D&D. It's this tough in Nimble. It feels the same. It's just faster and cooler. Will the game have feats? And if there will they work like 5e or you have an attribute? So the game, the default rules do not have feats, but the GM guide does have something I'm calling boons. And as an optional rule, the GM can say, hey, you can pick one of these boons instead of like an ability score increase, like a stat increase. So there's greater boons and lesser boons. So if you give up a key stat increase, you can pick a greater boon. If you give up a lesser stat increase or a secondary stat increase, you can pick a lesser boon. And there's also epic boons. But the boons are basically a system where, like, you do this wonderful deed for Galadriel, the queen of the elves, and she can bestow upon you not just loot or gold, but like a cool new ability. I deem you are brave, all right? You get this cool new ability, or you get this, this other thing. So these are boons that are intended to be like a cool story thing. When X happens, then you get this thing that the GM can give this to you. So the boons are designed for that, and not necessarily for I can pick and choose and optimize this. But if your table loves that and the GM wants to do that, you can certainly use those as you would a feat. So I hope that answers your question. Evan, would you say that something like Create and Destroy Water from 5e would have something a class with ice element have access to, or is there a water similar element? So yeah, ice water, yeah, it's sort of the same kind of idea. Ice is water, There are some cool arcane spells, and the way that arcane spells work is anybody who can cast a spell knows all the arcane spells. But if you know the fire and ice schools, you can do this with a spell. When you cast a spell, it'll look this way. But if you know necrotic and radiant, that same spell is going to do something slightly different. So you can do some of that stuff that way. How does protect differ from fighter protect fighting style? I don't super know what that means. But because we have the interpose reaction, you can actually play a tank. And like the Oathsworn and the Commander, they have subclasses that really make you feel like I'm the tank and I'm protecting, and I am like, this is my contribution to the party. Like my damage output might be lower, but because I'm protecting the mage and the cheat and all these other guys, they can really crank out the damage. And like if your fantasy is doing the cool thing, protecting my allies, that is definitely something you can really mechanically do. I don't know if that's what you're asking, Orlando. If you want to ask that a different way, I'll try to answer it. The Nimble book has a section that explains how to convert mana. Yeah. It's basically you have X number of spell slots, you get X mana. It's pretty easy. Okay, let's look at some more spells with the time that we got left. Where did my spell? All right, so there's Cryotomb, Arctic Annihilation. So this is the tier 9 ice spell. You become a rift to the plane of ice. So like your body just... you call forth innumerable shards of the Everglacier to lay waste to your foes. So a little bit of flavor if you want it. Not a whole lot. It's italicized. You can skip it if you want to. Any number of objects or willing creatures you choose within 90 feet are encased in ice, incapacitated, and immune to all damage and negative effects until the start of their next turn. All other creatures and objects within this radius, 90 feet, take 20 d6 cold damage. Any surviving creatures who took this damage must make a strength save or be stunned for 1 round. And once you cast the spell, you must long rest for 1 week before using it again. Really cool, really evocative. You can protect your allies. You can destroy, annihilate the bad guys. You can stun them. So really cool stuff. So it's not going to deal as much damage over multiple turns or multiple rounds as the fire one, but over 1 round, you can really explode the bad guys and protect your allies with one really, really cool spell. So it doesn't have as high of a high in terms of damage output as like dragon form, like you're an actual dragon. Like if you can make this last 10 minutes, like you're going to be dealing like a bajillion damage. But you can protect your allies. You can strategically do things. You can roll 20 dice. Like who doesn't want to do that? Amazing. But once you use a spell, you have to long rest for a week before you can use it again. So this is something that you have to be careful about when you're going to use this. But once you use this, yeah, that's cool. Lightning might be my favorite. It's one of my favorites. Top 6. One of my favorite spell schools. Lightning has the longest range and the highest damage, but there are severe drawbacks to lightning. So the lightning cantrip is Zap. Deal 2d8 lightning damage. 2d8. So if d10 is the standard, the baseline, 2d8 is punching far above. In the range also, instead of 90 feet, it's an additional 30 feet, 120 feet. So that's it. If this attack misses, the lightning fails to find ground and strikes you instead. So if you're rolling 2d8, if you miss, one of those is going to be a 1. So you're going to take 1 plus a d8. So the damage that you take isn't that high, but you are taking some damage. So you're never going to take 16 damage, because if you're rolling two 8s, you're not going to miss. So it's not as bad as it might initially seem, but also you're not going to be casting this spell willy-nilly. You're not going to cast this spell 3 times in a round, probably, because the first thing you do in a turn, yeah, you might do that. You cast 2d8. If you have high hit points, yeah, I'm going to crank out a bunch of damage. If you've already done 2 things and this is your 3rd action, you're going to be rolling with 2 stacks of disadvantage. The chances of missing is going to be close to 50%. So the order that you cast spells and do things in, now that matters too. So really cool way to, and if you just want to be a lightning mage, just blast dudes and blast yourself, that's fine too. But it's something that you can think about and strategize with too. So you take lightning damage if this misses. At high levels, it deals a little bit of extra damage. Electrical discharge. This can only be cast if you have taken lightning damage since last casting this encounter. And I think the latest version, this is an older draft, the latest version rephrases this. Basically, before you can cast this, you have to take lightning damage. So you get charged up. And then what you can do, and this is a cantrip, deal 2d8 lightning damage to all other creatures within 10 feet of you. So it's an AoE as a cantrip. And this attack does not miss. So if you zap yourself, you get charged up, and then you can electrical discharge. Really cool, quite strong AoE for free. It costs 1 action, and it costs no mana. So really strong, but you have to first set it up with something like Zap, or maybe you're fighting an enemy that zaps you. Arc Lightning, 2 actions, tier 1, deal 3d8 lightning damage to a target within 120 feet. The bolt also strikes the next closest creature to your target. If this attack misses, lightning fails to find ground and strikes you instead. So a tier 1 or level 1 spell dealing 3d8 damage to 2 different creatures is really strong, punching way above its weight class. But if your ally is the next closest creature, or if you are the next closest creature, then okay, you have to think about the positioning a little bit. So it takes a little bit of thought before you want to do this, and then missing this one also is a lot more painful. But if you have a Song Weaver in your party or some other way to gain advantage or mitigate the chances of missing, then these are really strong, really strong spells that you can cast without really worrying about the drawbacks. Alacrity, this is the tier 2 spell. So lightning doesn't get a spell that can defend themselves. Instead, they get a spell that they can make themselves go faster. Alacrity. For free, once before you roll initiative, so it doesn't cost any action, so once before you roll initiative, you can add one of your key stats to your roll. And if you upcast this, you can add +1 to your initiative per roll. So if you roll like a 9 on your initiative and you want to get 10, so you can get an extra action on your first turn, yeah, go ahead and spend a couple mana. You can make yourself go faster, or you can get all the way up to all 3 actions on your first turn. In testing, having 3 actions. So something that we started with was you just start your first turn with all 3 actions. That was way good. If the heroes go first, then the heroes can like take out half of all the bad guys before the bad guys even act. So how many actions you start with on your first turn is super strong. So a lot of these things are balanced with that in mind. What happens when multiple players are ready to engage in combat during initiative? I'm not sure what that means, Orlando. I apologize. If you can rephrase that in a different way, I'd be happy to answer that. Warren says, question, is there a mold skill that covers rituals or story spells like Speak of the Dead? Yeah, there are cool things you can, cool like weird utility spells you can use creatively. Absolutely. I'm going to have to pick up a few dozen more d6. Yeah, you never have too many dice. Oathsworn is the best tank there ever was. It rocks. Oathsworn is really cool. It really makes your party feel way more protected. I was GMing for my table, and there was an Oathsworn there, and like I couldn't kill any of the heroes while the Oathsworn was around. Like he was really doing some work. It felt so good. Like seeing the teamwork. Okay, would like to go back to martial talk. If a mage at level 20 can do stuff like turn into a dragon or do frost, what can we expect from something like a level 20 commander, cheat, or berserker? So Latsy, I'm gonna save that for the next stream. Since we're talking about the spells right now, I don't want to get too off track. But let me just tell you that they can do some really spicy things, really cool things. So at high levels in D&D, the martial classes sort of like taper off pretty quickly. They only sort of get to here, like at level 20, and the spellcasters get way up here, do cool stuff. With Nimble, martial classes get to do equally cool stuff at their high levels. So yeah, they can do some really spicy things. So we'll talk more about that later. Rules say whoever's ready first goes first. Oh, okay, so Orlando says, what if 3 players are ready to go at once? They can pick, or the GM could just pick. Like if it makes sense that if the berserker like insulted the guy or he was the one talking, the GM could just say, all right, you go first. Or if they want to strategize and say like, I'll go first, and then you could we'll go clockwise or we'll go counterclockwise. You're free to do that. As a GM, I would just recommend, if they are like chatting about it for too long, just pick someone just to get things going. But yes, if everybody's ready to go, like that's great. You got a fantastic table. Like congratulations. But usually there's going to be like one person who is clearly more ready than the rest, or one person who clearly started this and they should go first. Then yeah, they go first. Yep. Eager to see what the commander can do next stream. Yeah, commander's sweet. Commander's really cool. So instead of action surge, where like I get to do one more thing on my turn, and my turns take way longer, they have coordinated strike. So they can give themselves an extra action and an ally an extra action, and they both attack the same target, or they both can do something like teamwork style. So that is a big thing. So I'll tell you what the commander could do at level 20. Level 20, the first time each combat you use coordinated strike, every ally within 60 feet gains 1 additional action they can use on their next turn. So you say coordinated strike, you and an ally get it, but every ally also gets 1 additional action they can use on their next turn. And they have other cool things that can combo with that as well. Whenever they use their coordinated strike, they get X, Y, and Z on top of that too. So in addition to that, they get additional stats and other things as well. But that is their epic commander ability. So they can coordinate and improve the teamwork tactics amongst the party rather than just buffing themselves. They can move the allies around. If an ally goes down, they can shout at them to say, "Nope, hold the line, get back up." That kind of stuff, and they get back up. So they're not a healing class, but they can just like command an ally to like, don't die on me. Really cool stuff. I love the commander. All right, let's go back to spells. We'll look at a few more. I don't think we're gonna have time to go through all the spells, but at least we'll get through lightning. Yeah, we'll look at lightning and then necrotic, because necrotic is super spicy. Chain lightning, a 10-foot wide, 60-foot long bolt of lightning originates from you, dealing 5d8 lightning damage to all creatures in the area on a failed dex save. Half damage on save. Creatures wearing mail, plate, or wielding two-handed metal weapons automatically fail. So again, this is the lightning big AoE spell. This is their quote unquote fireball. This is their frost nova. So there are going to be situations where pyroclasm, frost nova, or chain lightning are going to be best. And it's not just which one is going to deal more damage. It's like, if this is the case, if the bad guys are lined up or X, Y, and Z, then chain lightning. If this other situation is different, then Frost Nova is going to be the best. If this other situation, then Pyroclasm, clearly the best. So each one has situations where they are the best to do, and ways that you can set them up, or ways that you can make someone automatically fail and guarantee more damage or more cool stuff happening. Electricity is maybe my favorite spell out of everything. Yeah. Electricity, tier 4, 2 actions. This is a reaction. Whenever any other creature within 120 feet does something, okay? So the options are pretty wide. You can switch the places of one willing creature, so it could be yourself or an ally, and another creature within range. So you could swap the places of two different willing creatures, so you and an ally if you want to, or an ally or yourself with a bad guy if you want to. If one was the target of an attack or an effect, the other becomes the new target. And if you target an unwilling creature, they're going to make a will save to resist. If you are dying when you cast a spell, instead of casting 4 mana and 2 actions, it costs 1 action and 2 mana. So it's something you can use when you're a tight spot a little bit more easily. So imagine the big bad evil guy is doing a huge cleave attack, bam, onto your friend. You can target your friend as the willing creature. You can target a bad guy as the unwilling creature. And if they fail, the bad guy is being attacked by the big bad evil guy, gets smashed, and your friend is teleported to safety. So you can do really interesting things with this. It depends a lot on your creativity, how powerful this is. But because it's a reaction, you can do this at any point. And it's really only limited by your creativity. And you can upcast this to increase the spell save DC for each mana that you spend. We have Electrocharge. This is our version of Haste, concentration, 1 minute. A target you touch, so yourself or someone else, gains 1 maximum action, plus 5 armor, and double speed, and advantage on dex saves for as long as you can maintain concentration, and you gain plus 1 minute duration for each additional mana spent. Ride the Lightning, tier 6 spell. You temporarily turn into a bolt of living lightning and strike with thunderous noise. Teleport up to 220 feet away to a spot you can see. If a willing creature occupies that spot, you change places with them. So if you have an ally who's surrounded by a bunch of bad guys, you can teleport into their spot, and then they teleport away to wherever you are. And then where you land around, with all the bad guys around, creatures within 15 feet take 10d8 lightning damage, and they have to make a strength save or be hurled back, boom, 20 feet. Knocked prone and deafened for a day. So they're hurled back 20 feet. That's far enough that if they stand up on their turn, they're going to have to use additional action to be back within melee range of you. So really cool way for you to teleport to the action, blast some dudes, tactically move around as well. If a creature fails by 10 or more, they're also stunned for 1 turn until the end of their next turn. So upcasting it, you can increase the range and damage. Seething Storm, the tier 9 lightning spell. Concentration up to 1 minute. Costs 3 actions to maintain each turn. So this is something that you can keep doing as turn after turn. You're enveloped in a 20-foot radius cloud of tempestuous storm that follows you. You gain a flying speed. You can move around for free once per round. So you are basically whisked up into the air. You're flying and you can move around. You can move this storm wherever you go. Attacks made against you are made with disadvantage. So what else does this do? Up to 6 different creatures you choose within the area are unerringly struck by a bolt of lightning, taking 10d8 lightning damage. and a creature can only be struck by once per round. Each round you maintain concentration, the storm grows. The storm seethes even more deeply. It grows in radius, and the number of bolts of lightning that it casts is increased by 2. And once you cast a spell, you have to long rest for a week before you can cast it again. Chris Lux says, so you could swap 2 allies Oathsworn maybe with Electricity? Sure can. You could do some fancy schmancy stuff with that. So you can Electricity the Oathsworn into range, so then the Oathsworn can interpose for free, and then they get their thing, and then the allies, yeah, you can do some really neat stuff with that. Warren says, I've not read any of the Sanderson books. You have a lot of competition out there right now, but it looks like I'll be picking this up. Cool. All right, wonderful. This may be what I wanted when I paid for TOV. Yeah, Tales of Valiant looks cool, but it's very much 5e. I would use their monster book over the 5e monster book because like they're just a lot more thoughtful. But they didn't move the goalpost. They wanted it to be D&D, but their branding of D&D. So Tales of Valiant looks cool. I've got my box set here. I've looked at it a little bit, but it's very much D&D still. They didn't change a lot, so the good and the bad of that. All right, we'll quickly go through some of the necrotic spells, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. Summon Shadow. So you can see how I'm doing everything I can to reduce the words, make it easier to parse and understand quickly at a glance without having to have multiple paragraphs of text. So basically, summon a D12 Shadow minion adjacent to yourself, so you can do that. And then as an action, you command all of your minions to move up to 30 feet and attack. And you can have a maximum of, the latest version is int. This is controlled by your intelligence. Okay, they abandon you when outside of combat. So the Shadowmancer only, of course, they get really cool minions that can just like throw at the bad guys. And if the bad guys can kill them easily, but if they do, the bad guys are wasting their attacks on these minions. Okay. Shadow Blast, deal 1d12 plus your charisma damage to a target within 60 feet. You can cast this only once per round. Entice is cool. On a failed will save, a target within 60 feet takes 1d6 damage and moves 10 feet nearer to you, so you're bringing them closer. Repeat until they save or cannot move any longer. So this could deal a whole ton of damage, but you are pulling bad guys toward you. It could be, I guess, 6d6 damage for a cantrip. So you can entice them towards you. Withering Touch, touch a target and deal 1d12 damage. So d10 is the baseline. This deals d12, but it's a touch spell, so the range is very short. They're considered undead until the end of your next turn. Why would being undead matter? Real quick, we'll look at Rebuke. Rebuke is the Radiant cantrip. Deals 1d6 radiant damage to a target within 20 feet, ignoring armor. Deals double damage against undead or the cowardly, those behind cover. So if you have a Shadowmancer and a Shepherd, or just a Shepherd, Shepherds know Radiant and necrotic spells, they can make something undead and then blast them with Rebuke, dealing twice as much damage. So cool little combos like that you can do. Make something undead, and then blast them. A Shadow Trap is going to be adjusted just a little bit before release, but the idea is going to stay the same. So the idea is you trap a certain area on the ground, and then the first creature who steps there gets blasted, gets eaten by a shadow, taking a bunch of damage. So it's something you can trap a certain spot on the ground, and then you can entice creatures to come, step on the thing. So cool little combos. Void Cloak, tier 2 spell. So this is a concentration spell. Wrap yourself in horrifying living shadow. Melee attacks against you have disadvantage. Whenever a creature would make a melee attack against you, they first take 1d12 necrotic damage. Okay, so before they can even attack you, they take this damage, and it's going to be with disadvantage. Vampiric Greed, this is the AoE spell for necrotic. You deal 4d12 necrotic damage to all creatures within 5 feet, so the range is small and the damage is a little bit less than some of these others. But you heal HP equal to the damage done. But any surviving creatures must make a strength save, and so each surviving creature makes a strength save, and you gain 1 wound for every creature that saves. So this is a very risky spell. If it's a bunch of weak creatures, then you can do this. If you have a bunch of really strong high hit point creatures, if you use Vampiric Greed to heal yourself, you're probably going to heal a lot of your hit points, but you're going to take a lot of wounds. You might just kill yourself outright with this if you get unlucky or if you cast this in a bad spot. So the shadow spells have very high risk, very high reward type of thing. You're playing with fire basically, and then you can upcast it to get to increase your spell save DC for additional mana. Greater Shadow. This is basically you summon one enormous shadow minion, which is basically acts as if it was like 5 shadow minions, so 5d12. When it dies, it explodes into 5 different shadow minions as well. So at higher levels, you don't want to spend like a bunch of turns summoning all these shadow minions. You just boom, boom, Greater Shadow. Summon one big Greater Shadow. It attacks for 5d12, and whenever the enemy kills it, it explodes, and you have 5 minions there that you can put wherever you like. Fester Wounds. Explain wounds again. Yeah, so exhaustion. So it's the updated term for exhaustion. So basically, exhaustion. If you get 6 levels of exhaustion, you die. And the phrasing was just updated because in Nimble, exhaustion works nothing like it works in 5e, and I didn't want to confuse people. And wounds sounds more on brand or on fantasy. So if you get 6 wounds, then you die. Do you heal for the damage done? Vampiric Greed deals damage to all enemies in total, or do you only heal for the damage rolled? The damage done. Actually, let me see how it's worded. Basically, you are the damage done. So if there's like 4 goblins with 4 hit points, then you heal 4 hit points. If for the sake of speed, if you just wanted to heal for the damage done, I might tweak that so that's just easier to run. But currently, it's worded to damage done. Fester Wounds, this one is really cool. Damaged creatures, so a Necrotic cares a lot about if creatures are damaged or bloodied already. So damaged creatures within 20 feet take 6d12 necrotic damage on a failed strength save. They make their save with disadvantage if they're bloodied. So if they're heavily wounded already, they're a lot more susceptible for their wounds to being festered, right? And that makes sense. So if they're damaged, so they don't take any damage from this. If they're at full hit points, they don't have any wounds. They're not wounded at all. If they're bloodied, they have a lot of wounds, so they're going to be a lot more susceptible to this spell. Unspeakable Word. A target within 60 feet dies on a failed will save. If they succeed, you gain the dying condition. The target has disadvantage on the save if they're bloodied, and they have advantage on the save if they are unharmed. So could you just kill something? Yeah. Could you just kill yourself? Yeah. All right, that's what I'm talking about. And then the highest tier, tier 7, necrotic spell is Creeping Death. This one is pretty spicy. You got to be careful with this one. Deal 8d12 damage to a creature within 60 feet. If this kills the creature, it violently erupts. You must deal the same amount of damage to another creature within 60 feet of it that has not yet been damaged by this effect. Repeat until the creature survives this damage or no other creatures are in range. So this could kill a guy, and it could also get every one of your party members if you are arranged in an unwise manner. Or this could just get all of the bad guys. You can all the bad guys, they all explode, and then hooray, you win. So very risky spell, and it needs some. You can't just cast this right away and expect it to not do some bad stuff to you. But if you can set up a situation where you can have the pox on all of them, and they all explode and spread it to one another, and then you and your party are safe, like, oh man, you feel like a mastermind, like a hero, and like it feels amazing. And your GM will just clap, like, all right, hey, you deserve that. If I was GM, I would clap like that. That is amazing. You did the thing. Very, very cool. But likely this is usually gonna have a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. This is awesome. Yeah, I like that. Power word pandemic. I like that. Power word pandemic. Power word COVID. Okay, cool. It's been about 2 hours, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please check out the Nimble 5e backer kit page. We are working on. We're close. It was 173. We're close to the 180k Shadow Reaver, Shadowmancer Martial subclass. So Thursday or Friday, probably we're going to do another live stream. We'll talk about some more of the martial classes then. and probably do a cool preview of the Shadow Reaver of some ideas. It's not fully developed yet, but I'd love to share you guys some of the ideas of what I've been cooking up for that. So excited about that. And at 200,000, I'll just go and tell you guys that I'm planning some really cool book upgrades. So rather than, so for the soft cover, like this one, rather than having staple, rather than being staple bound, the soft cover is going to be sewn binding, perfect bound. So a much higher quality, much higher quality soft cover book, and then the hardcover book, we're gonna do some really good upgrades, fancy bookmarks, foil stamping, better materials, like just increasing the quality of it even more. So if you don't know what sewn bound is, like all of the regular D&D books, they're glue bound. So when they sit on the table, they don't really open up all the way. You have to sort of like pull it to open up and lay flat. A lot of times it doesn't lay flat the way that you would like it. It'll bubble up, especially if there's not a whole lot of pages to one side. This is a book that I've used a lot, but a lot of times like it'll sort of try to close on you. So this is a glue bound. It's a hardcover, but it's sort of a cheap hardcover. It's glue bound. Let me see if I have any. Let me see if this is a sewn binding. This is a glue binding. Basically, a sewn binding means that the book opens up flat and lays flat. It's more expensive to produce, but it is a much higher quality, and it lays flat. You don't have to like fight with the book to keep it open all the time. It just opens and lays flat really nicely. So the hardcover is getting that, as well as the soft cover, but the hardcover is going to get even more cool upgrades like gold foil stamping and like this cool stuff. I want it to be as cool as it can because I want the book myself. So if we could get to 200,000, 180,000, those are things that are waiting. So it's going to be more expensive to produce that, but if we have the additional funding, then we'll be able to afford to do that. Let's see if there's any other questions before we wrap it up. Could we have an option to get extra core rules plus character books without the GM adventure book? It makes a little sense to get a second copy of the GM. I mean, you could give it away to a friend that you want, or something else like that. But right now, the additional cost and time that would be needed to arrange that and for fulfillment, the logistics alone would make it not worth it. It'll make it much more complicated. If people can pick like 3 of this book and 2 of this book and 1 of this, just putting that together makes it take a lot longer. If instead it's just like someone ordered this, I can put this in a box and ship it much more easily without worrying about errors or delays or other weird things happening. So just because it's a small team, just me, I have to do things to make sure that it is easy to fulfill, and you guys can get it quickly. So in the future, I might do that once things calm down a little bit. But for now, if you want extra, you can get, there's certain, you just get the set of 3. Getting an extra set of 3 is cheaper right now, is cheaper than what it will be to just get 2 of the books later. So just you can keep the book or give it away to someone, or if you lose it, you have an extra backup copy. So I'd love to be able to offer all the different customization options, but it does make it a lot more difficult on the logistics end, fulfillment. And I want to make sure that you guys can get this without any issues, or any delays or anything like that. I'm definitely considering backing Faerie now with a booklet announcement. Thanks for bringing the other one. Yeah, thank you. Glad that helped you. Thank you for these deep dives. Wife, kids, and I are so excited for this. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or leave a comment somewhere. It's evan@nimblerpg.com. Just email me. That goes directly to me. There isn't any customer service. I am it. Or if you want to go on Discord, you can find the links on the website as well. Thank you guys again. Appreciate it. And